forgot to record when I was writing this, but biological causes for modern body image standards. This is a hot topic, but recently I've been thinking. So there's this general idea that thousands of years ago, when food was scarce, body fat was deemed attractive because it signaled an aptitude for the accumulation of resources. But humans now in the modern, 21st century, seem to have switched completely. Now we value low body fat, chiseled abs, and all these things. But why? Maybe because in an age of abundance, what we as humans value is self-regulation. I think this has an interesting relationship with the neurochemical serotonin and generally things regarding mood regulation. 1,000 years lower serotonin levels maybe have correlated with a more brawl-like behavior appropriate for fight or flight, hunter-gatherer settings. Fight or flight, hunter-gatherer settings, or work horse farming conditions. But now, in a time with a lot of structure and order and clearly defined hierarchies. But now in a time with a lot of structure and order and clearly defined hierarchies, we value, what's the word for it? Synchrony. We value synchrony. As humans operate with each other within clearly defined. Now in a society, in a time with a lot of structure and order and clearly defined hierarchies, we value synchrony. As humans operate with each other within clearly defined boundaries. But an interesting thing about serotonin levels is that they seem to diminish. But an interesting thing about serotonin levels is that they seem to diminish as you look at people operating at lower levels within a hierarchy. The chemical is bound with, is related to a sense. The chemical is related to a sense of acceptance and peace. The interesting thing about serotonin is that they seem to diminish as you look at people operating at lower levels within a hierarchy. The chemical is related to a sense of acceptance and peace. So this is perhaps why we are seeing rising levels of mental health issues, because our low serotonin levels no longer correlate with fight or flight situations, and thus exhibit their behaviors through different vectors. We're seeing rising levels of mental health issues because our low serotonin levels no longer correlate with fight or flight situations and thus exhibit their behaviors through different vectors. I think it's interesting. Modern pharmacology and health practices are instead. I think it's interesting our modern pharmacology and health practices are instead forcing. I think it's interesting the modern pharmacology and health practices are instead forcing or feeding serotonin in the pill form. We are also seeing its emerging use through hallucinogenic compounds. What do you mean you can't fucking spell hallucinogenic? Oh wow. Instead feeding serotonin in the pill form, we're also seeing its emerging use through hallucinogenic compounds. I instead have channelized my frustration with my position within some hierarchy, whether that be my family, sexual marketplace, capitalist economy, academic academic settings, through working out intensely, because this is also, I instead channelize my frustration within my position within some hierarchy, whether that be my family, sexual marketplace, capitalist economy, academic setting, through working out intensely, because this is perhaps what we were supposed to do when our moods were volatile and our hormones were spiking and swinging. And thus, I have climbed the subconscious hierarchies within my own framework for reality, and perhaps others as well. I think it's interesting, a lot of Eastern philosophies built during times of abundance during a few thousand years ago, focused on the principal habits and thoughts that brought about serotonin. I think a lot of Eastern philosophies built during times of abundance. Take, for example, Buddha, who is nothing but a prince from a lavish royalty, or the ancient Hindu kingdoms, empires. My knowledge here is in fact limited. I am merely making connections. Buddha, who is nothing but a prince from a lavish royalty, or the ancient Hindu empires. My knowledge here is in fact limited. I am merely making connections. I also think it's interesting that these ancient hierarchies express themselves through a caste system that is no longer respected, I believe. It is an outdated software model. Put this in conversation with the rapid rise of Western civilization, which was more dopamine focused. But put this in conversation with the rapid rise of Western civilization, which was more dopamine focused. Now, conquer, fuck, steal, build, take. Drugs such as caffeine and cocaine were rampant use. During the 20th century, we saw the crux of this behavior, and perhaps our transition as a Western civilization to the methodologies of those ancient Eastern societies. Hierarchies. Okay, I think that's enough for today.